Okay, hello and welcome back. We are continuing with Gilded Shadows today. We are on chapter 10. We'll probably get through that in chapter 11, which means 3 more chapters and then the epilogue. I have plans for this Wednesday. I don't know, in terms of what I'm going to do this Wednesday in terms of streaming. This past Wednesday I did not because stuff got in the way. Real life stuff. Not that this isn't real life, but you know what I mean. Right. What was I going to do? That's right. Pulling something up on my phone. Okay. Right. So, where did we leave off? The main character, in this case her name is Dahlia. We are doing Reuben's route. Has been helping Reuben with his cases as a consultant, and it's entirely possible that there are other groups that are trying to prevent these deaths from happening, or as Mayor Shin says, these are happening from happening. And part of the reason that she's able to do this is because she is a queen rank. There are things she can do that lower ranked Espers cannot, and it's just because they don't have the same kind of power that a queen rank does. it is almost May. Can you believe that? Ah, where's the time gone? Okay. And also has been getting close to Reuben. Naturally, they've had some more smooches, and that's just the one. Hi, welcome. About to start the next chapter. Ah, 4 more. Well, 5 more when you think about it. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 5 more. 5 more, which means 3 streams. Unless I really push and do 3 chapters next stream, which I probably won't. Because I understand there's an epilogue after 14, so we'll do 14 as its own stream, and then the epilogue, and then decide what to do after that. One more light. Feeling better now? A little. I wonder if using Psy makes you hungry. I think repeatedly refusing breakfast makes you hungry. I cannot do that. I cannot refuse breakfast. I'm always hungry when I get up in the morning. I'm not used to eating breakfast. I almost never do anymore. It feels strange to eat that early. Which is why you get cranky in the early afternoon. I was not cranky. Oh, you most certainly were cranky. Happy birthday! Okay, 14 is more like an epilogue. Okay. We'll see how I'm doing time-wise next week then. So you finished all of Errant Kingdom, all the routes, all the love interests, all of that fun stuff? I've been replaying it a bit because I miss it. So who's your favorite romance? Do you have a favorite ally? Do you have a favorite route too? Like, do you prefer playing the Ambassador, the Knight, or the Nomad? Or does it matter? Raiden and Lucian, no matter what? Yes, they're a good pair. This kind of shows my preferences, but my favorite is actually Livia. Especially pairing her with the Nomad. That's fun. My favorite romance in When the Night Comes, I blinked on the name, is Piper, but that's more because she's the only female romance, and I prefer to romance female characters. But there's a reason that Gilded Shadows caught my attention. I was cranky because I was struggling to find any useful information. Yeah, Nomad is fun, and it's just a contrast with the Ambassador and Knight routes. You were much crankier today than I've ever seen you, and it also happens to be a day you refused to eat breakfast. That's all I'm saying. Stop sounding like my mother. But you look so charming when you're annoyed by it. Couldn't conceal my smile at his teasing or that stupid grin on his face. When he relaxed a little and started teasing, I could almost pretend we weren't having a very annoying work day. I like it when they tease. Almost. I took a long sip of my coffee, stretching the kinks out of my shoulder as I watched the crowd passing. This reminded me a little of my first day meeting Reuben, when we'd had brunch together. I'd been so scared and nervous back then. I could never have imagined having a calm lunch with him a few weeks later in another city. I looked at him again, watching him type into a handheld display. One of his many quirks. That I loved, of course. It was funny how those things could catch the attention and become a focal point of affection. Of course, like there are certain parts of the When the Night Comes that I replay. Like, often generally it's the lovey-dovey parts, them being sweet and sappy together. 'Cause it's fun, that's why I play the game. Even though I shouldn't be thinking about this right now. What was it you heard when you were looking around at the Emerson place again? All I heard was someone say the name Leon, followed by what I think was the phrase, watch out. It was a little garbled, though. Oh no, I need to uninstall both of my favorite games? Why? Is there not enough room on your computer? I really destroyed all the psychometric evidence in that place when I power surged. A lot of the physical evidence the teams hadn't gathered yet, too. Thanks. As if she needed that reminder. Well, you did say you had the sense of all the threads getting pulled into you. It sounds like the explosion of your side disrupted whatever echoes were remaining. At this point, we'll take what we can get. I'm glad you managed to sense anything at all today. At the very least, it confirms our trio was at that scene. Aw, that sucks. You had to remove the games. I just wish I could have confirmed more about Ricci's attack. Twisted my fingers together on the table. That one was difficult to witness. It wasn't just a few flashes of dialogue or images. It was like watching a full-on attack from afar and being able to do nothing to stop it. Reuben blamed my bad mood on being hungry, but no. It was because of witnessing something like that. At least I had seen a clear image, clear enough to recognize the night from the hospital that day, the one that teleported Nathan Powell to another location. And I also confirmed that he fled in a hurry after getting interrupted, or that's what it looked like. The trio was nowhere in sight unless they were the ones who interrupted. Either way, they weren't the attackers. Well, that's good. It didn't seem like they were. You confirmed what we needed you to confirm. Even if you didn't see the trio, that in itself is useful. He gave me a regretful smile. You're becoming a pro at this. I keep meaning to reorganize my saves, but do I do it? No! I will when I finish playing the Rat Witch, maybe soon. I don't know what I'm going to do after I finish Gilded Shadows. Oh yeah, I'm going to do the Changeling demo at least. And depending on how long that is, it may take me a couple sessions to get through, because it took me 2 sessions to get through the demo for this one. What's your new visual novel that you're playing? If I'm going to do this, I may as well do my best, though I think I'm still far from being an actual pro. I think it's much closer than you believe it is, but maybe it's that perfectionist streak that keeps you from acknowledging it. Bride of Darkness. Yeah, you told me about that one. Maybe it's more likely it's the lack of strategy. I'm just going here or going there and still don't know what I'm doing. That's what we all do sometimes. You're still learning, and you've still done more than some of our long-term consultants do. 4 chapters so far. Deb is working on chapter 5. Got it. Isn't it ironic that if I get to keep doing this, I may lose the support of some of the people originally eager to keep me out of Endgame? Locking me up behind Endgame's neutrality and hesitance to get involved in political issues might have been very convenient for the people we're trying to find right now. Maybe, but they aren't the only people that matter. And to be fair, we could all come under fire for this case, not just you. Sorry about that. Part of the job, Dahlia. Better to put a stop to all this than to pretend it's not happening. That's true. Still, the fallout of this one is a little intimidating to think about it. We'll be fine. One hopes. Reuben and I were almost finished with lunch when Winter contacted him to say he was on his way back to the office. He'd been spending the day hunting down and talking to potential witnesses and those that Phil wanted us to touch base with. Everyone he spoke with Esper claimed Nate was personally coordinating all the relocation referrals. No one else had any information about it. Convenient. You'd eliminate Nathan and no one else is... everyone's clueless. Fantastic. Refused to allow Winter access to the information without a warrant. He had also been in several known Esper communities, areas where they knew there were some unregistered Espers. Very small groups, often of just 10 to 15 people. Rumors got around whenever there was something going on in Esper circles, so he thought they may have heard something. He said he learned some interesting things and would fill us in at the office. We were already finished with what we had set out to do, so we decided to meet him there right away. Well, I can say for sure that in certain circles, people are wary of Espenon. I was told only the truly desperate go there because everyone else is cautious. So Espenon doesn't have a good reputation in smaller Esper circles. Interesting. To be fair, neither does Community Psi. In fact, a lot of the support groups are regarded with suspicion unless they're run by Espers. That makes a whole lot of sense. But smaller private groups like Espenon earn more trust, so it's unusual that so many people weren't fond of it. Okay. What specifically were people cautious about? Most of them were wary of the relocation process. Typically, Espers, registered or not, relocate when their reputation takes a hit somehow and people get uncomfortable with them. Makes it hard to get work, even housing and things like that. With the unregistered, this is a much bigger problem since they could get reported too. So if someone finds out they're an Esper or they get into some kind of trouble, through these support groups they can get help with moving to a new place where no one knows them. As we are aware, Espenon often referred people to Community Psi for relocation. At first, a lot of people went to them for help, but over time, trust eroded. There seem to be a lot of rumors about people disappearing. These little sub-communities are like a communication network. They share information about safe places to live, areas to be cautious of, and they stay in touch with each other. This is going to sound kind of horrible, but it's similar to the books that used to be published that let black people know which places in America were good for black people, were safe for black people to go to for gas or a hotel or something like that. This was during, I think this was before the Jim Crow laws were banned, but that sort of thing. So when someone disappears, it gets around. I'd had no idea there was anything like that. Sub-communities of Esper's communication networks. Yeah, not every unregistered Esper can pass for a non-Esper. It was strange imagining that I could have ended up involved in that sort of thing too if things had gone differently. Seems like a fair amount of the rogues Espenon helped ended up going dark. What about our trio? Learn anything about them? I did find a couple of people who know of a rook named Leon who reportedly has 2 others he goes around with, one of whom is a knight and the other they're not sure about. Seems like it's probably our trio. One person said that Leon has an anger problem and a lot of that anger is aimed at groups like Community Psi. Interestingly, they pinned the attacks on Cyrna on him, who's going around roughing up Community Psi employees, then just stopped. The 3 of them showed up here in Erida not that long ago and have been asking questions about the local Community Psi office. Seems like they're looking for a friend of theirs. One of these relocated Espers who went dark? Not sure. Seems like no one knows our trio well. They keep to themselves. Well, they've only arrived recently and haven't had a chance to get to know the other groups, and of course they have each other, so it's not like they'd feel a need to reach out to other Espers. It makes sense why they went after the Emersons since they handle Community Psi data. As for Ricci, not sure. If their friend got caught up in what we think the Triad is up to, I'm not sure how they'd have stumbled on that information. Feels like we're still missing a piece. Yeah, definitely. Did you get any info on where this trio is? No one's seen them for a while now. They don't seem to have a permanent place at any shelters or known haunts. If they really were just looking for a missing friend, it would make sense why they said they didn't want to hurt anyone. They just wanted information. That's somewhat tracked with my impressions of them. I didn't think they were dangerous. We need to find them somehow, but it's going to be hard. They don't have strong ties with the communities here. I agree. The notification chime sounded in my head, and I tilted my head when I saw the message I just received. What the? Reuben? Yeah, what's up? I'm receiving a message that we should go to your place as quickly as we can. What? I looked up at him, a frown crossing my face. It's Magnus Ulrich. Ulrich? So, this is the second time you 2 are breaking into my home. I assume you have a good reason. We didn't break anything. I'll have you know, Ari teleported us directly inside. Yeah, I'm not giving you that on a technicality. Sorry. To what do we owe the dubious honor this time, Mr. Ulrich? Now, Reuben, we're all allies here, if not friends, and I much prefer to be called Magnus. The look on Reuben's face was not encouraging, but Magnus continued anyway, which was to be expected, naturally. I don't think the man had ever been discouraged by someone looking like they might throttle him at any moment. Arya was standing next to him, passive as always when we reached Reuben's place, and now it felt like a standoff between the two of them and the three of us. 3, since Winter had come with us this time. I've been watching your little investigation, Dahlia. It seems you stumbled on quite the case. You say as if you weren't aware of it from the start. Aware of it from the start? What in the world do you mean? How could I possibly have known that? I'm not a bishop. Says that you have a little army of them at your disposal. I struggle more and more to think that one of the only known king ranks on the planet was completely unaware of the situation. You think far too highly of my abilities, Dahlia, honestly. Did you know? I'm aware it's difficult for you, but please be honest with me about this one, Magnus. You told me I was going to have to do something bigger than just normal crimes, and here we are now, and I just need to know what you do. He regarded me for a moment before leaning forward and resting an elbow on his knee. Some of it, yes, not all, by far. I was certainly aware that your Nathan Powell might be connected to something more significant, nothing more. All right, fine, I'll take that. Why did you come here again? The council has been asking for updates on your situation. I've been doing my best to distract them with other things, as promised. But I believe I may be nearing the end of that being a successful strategy, and I've made a fascinating discovery recently. I don't know why I'm doing this voice for him, but it's fun. It might be difficult for you to imagine how every individual's brain perceives psi and what that looks like to each one of us. Indeed, I think I would struggle to explain it myself. However, I was looking around, as I do, in the vastness of the cyber network of information on this world, and I heard some faint footsteps within that normally empty space. Kings tend to be quite good at concealing themselves from each other. At the very least, Oberon and I know how to avoid each other, so who would be leaving such obvious echoes? He picked up on the fact that she did some cyber diving. Oberon? A code name for Crimson's king. However, it seems a little Titania is not so good at hiding her traces. I'm assuming that's me. Correct! Thank you, I'm glad you like the voice. I don't know, it's just, I remember doing it for him last time. I was like, let's stick with it. It's not like I do voices when I'm just playing by myself. It's a little strange since, of course, queens can't mimic king ranks. Oh, they can't? Really? Well, I mean, in chess, the queen can pretty much move anywhere on the board in a straight line. So, basically, they can do the same kind of moves as bishops or rooks. But they can't do the same move as a knight. And technically, they can do the same move as a pawn or a king. But why would they limit themselves? Yeah, about that. Knowledge of a rogue king rank would throw everyone into an absolute panic, so hopefully there's not a repeat of that little experiment. Oh, don't worry. Titania received numerous lectures about it and has learned her lesson. It seems a few more may be in order. No thanks. Well, I'm glad to hear that, but that isn't the most interesting part, you see. Chasing down your not so subtle traces led me down a rabbit trail, and I discovered there may be another little mouse running around in the system. Oh, besides him and the other king rank? Interesting. Another mouse? I found evidence of another king rank. Traces are faint, someone who is experienced enough to cover their tracks somewhat, but not well enough to avoid someone with a little more know-how. I've dubbed them Puck. It only seemed fitting for such a cute little trickster. This is hitting all my buttons. I love Midsummer Night's Dream. It looks as though they've peered into community side more than a few times, and a few other interesting places. At least they've tried, not always successfully. They're quite interested in Domain, for example. How surprising they're even aware of that group. Wait, what? A rogue king rank? Hence, I thought you might find the information useful. I'm not sure what's wrong with them, but their traces are messy. Half-accessed files, such as that appear to stop in the middle. It's odd. An unknown king rank looking into Domain's files. Focus on Magnus momentarily, just to check, and its eye was a deep, intricate violet mass. I had actually never seen size, complex, and structure. Still, that color. I'd seen that color before, which meant that one of our alleyway trio was a king rank, not a bishop as I'd originally thought. Huh. But her size structure is so different. I can see you realize something important. I'm glad. The reason I came, in addition to warning you to be more careful, was to give you this, so I'm pleased that turned out to be the right decision. I was surprised he didn't ask for details. Instead, he nodded to Ari, who produced a small packet from behind his back. Reuben took it, a questioning look on his face as he glanced over it. What is it? A gift. I poked in a little into your case, and it's led me to some interesting places, courtesy of certain little mouse trails. Consider this an endgame consulting freebie, if you will. We are, for better or for worse, still above the law, so if I poke into places I normally shouldn't be, even if it goes public, the fallout will be minimal. I believe you'll find some useful details on the Aquarius project inside. Aquarius? Magnus found something about it? Quite an interesting project, that is. And horrifying, of course. It's very, very well hidden. I imagine you've had no luck at all in digging anything up, yet Puck knew about it and knew how to access it. Certainly if they'd learned about it from mere rumors the way you have, it would have taken a great deal of skill to locate the actual data. Though they weren't successful in accessing all of what I've just given you, since they lack the skills to let themselves in, why do you let things like this persist if you have the ability to dig into things and learn enough details to shut them down? I appreciate your faith in me, Dahlia, but I'm not all-powerful. Do you believe a single person has the ability to dig through every system on this planet at all times? Perhaps there's someone like that out there, but it is not me. I do not simply know things. I learn about them, and then I find more information when I need it. Aside from the sheer magnitude of tracking every shady thing every organization on this planet is up to, I think you'll find other problems with the very idea if I poke into everyone's business at a whim. It's pure tyranny to break into everyone's systems every day simply because of rumors. Once we're on that slippery slope, where does it end? It's still tyranny if the only reason it doesn't happen is because of your goodwill. Well, I won't argue with that. But there are other considerations this time, even if I knew of this project a year ago when it was still going on. Swooping in and closing it down would result in an investigation that might harm the stability of a certain shadow dome I have had the great pleasure of learning about. Even a year ago, such an investigation would have been devastating for them. Now, perhaps I'll have time to stabilize the situation before people begin questioning where, what is it called, Erenthal comes from? I may be a terrible person, but I do sometimes consider the consequences of my actions. Beside him, Ari let out a cough that sounded much more suspiciously like a scoff. Magnus ignored him. Of course he does. I'm definitely looking forward to playing the other routes even more. But after this one. I glanced up at Reuben, who was flipping through the holo packet. It says here the experiment failed. You mentioned it's no longer going on as of a year ago. What happened? It appears that the test subjects rebelled, or a group of them did anyway, some of them devastatingly young. From what I can find of them, most tried to reintegrate into society with very limited success. It's hard to live a peaceful life on the run. Some months ago, as I believe you are aware, there was a series of attacks. Quill. Oh, there's an option that I was going to take, but it would have led me to Quilta. I was like, no, Reuben, we're romancing Reuben. A series of attacks on Community Psi and Tuna. These attacks alerted Domain to the location of 4 of the escapees. One of them was recaptured and returned to another facility, a sort of sister project called Gemini. Aquarius and Gemini, those are both astrological signs in Western society. A sister project. No wonder they're so desperate to find their friend. Indeed, they should know full well what is in store for her. Digging into Gemini has been an ordeal. So far, anyway, it's far more heavily protected than Aquarius. Because Aquarius failed, but Gemini apparently is still ongoing. I imagine if we do any amount of digging, we'll find that Domain started cleanup of expendable people the moment the first project failed a year ago. probably didn't become obvious until they clashed with our trio, who were trying to get information since their project appears to have left them with a very efficient way to do it. Precisely. Given the circumstances, it looks like our hypothesis about the support groups being a gateway to the project was correct. That appears to be the case, yes. What will Endgame do now? You could blow the lid off all of this in an instant, you know. It's too early. If we get involved now, the Triad will almost definitely find a way to distract everyone with things like the implications of my being able to go into any top secret file or find any information at my own will. Our shadow domes with vast populations of neo-humans and unregistered Espers. The council will deflect criticisms of my actions by saying I took note of the situation because of Dahlia and her little puck digging into systems. There will be fear-mongering about unregistered king ranks and Espers in general violating everyone's privacy, and the rest of our plans evaporate. But the bigger issue is that Gemini Project is still a mystery even to me. Which means if things go awry, the Triad will have more than enough time to clean up before we can stop them or prove its existence. That's why I believe it will be best if this case continues to be led by you, a group seeking justice from within the Triad. The Triad won't be able to paint you as villains without it looking like a desperate cover-up. That isn't true for Endgame. When the time comes, my help can be minimized and explained as a proper request based on evidence, which is more or less true. More or less. I imagine everyone is better off this way, and I do apologize for yet another quick visit. I do sometimes wish I could stay longer and discuss. Well, no matter. I'm afraid we have to get back soon. My guard is already badgering us. Mara is always so demanding. Excuse me. We are almost out of time in their defense. Yes, I know you're always quick to defend them while never defending me. Quite disappointing, really. I merely observe. Anyway. He clapped his hands and stood, and I expected them to leave in a flash again, but Magnus paused and looked my way again, his expression serious. And Dahlia, I wasn't being facetious about your ability to emulate king rank Psi. It would be best if you bury that knowledge deep and leave it there. It's a Pandora's box you do not want to open. Please, take my word on that. And they vanished. For a moment, none of us spoke. What is a Pandora's box? That's a reference to Greek mythology. Older than Shakespeare. That's Earth mythology. It's a metaphor for doing something that leads to negative consequences you can't undo. Appropriate, I suppose. Yeah. Guess we should take a look at that packet of information to see if it's something we can use. Looks like a full description of Aquarius and names tied to it. That'll help us with what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe help us figure out who is on the cleanup list. What do you think about this puck Magnus talked about? This rogue king rank? Oh, that's right. They're one of our trio for sure. It was a person with Leon that day at Gabrielle Ricci's apartment. I assumed she was a bishop because it made the most sense. Based on her size, she's the king rank, but what is it? Comparing her side to Magnus, I can see that her side was in an unusual state, fluctuating, disorganized structure. I noticed it the first time I saw her, but I'm still learning about different ways Psi can visually present, so I wasn't sure what it meant. But now, given that she also has phage symptoms, I wonder if she's struggling with her Psi somehow. Maybe that's why they can't just access information as easily as Magnus. You'd think with a king rank, they wouldn't have to go door to door asking people for information. But if she isn't able to use her abilities well, might have to do with the iron cell experiments somehow. You and I were fine after minuscule doses, but I assume they've been exposed to much more of it and maybe for a longer period. Aquarius lasted for at least 5 years. At a glance, it looks like the targets were younger Espers, low level. This was what gave them the highest success rate. Based on the data here, older Boric systems are less flexible and burn out quickly. The results were almost always death or coma. Well, that's lovely. I wonder if that's what made them realize it was a convenient way to get rid of people without detectable traces. Maybe. As Magnus said, the project failed when the test subjects fought back. Seems like they'd been training them like a combat division. He threw the packet on the table. This is disgusting. Train them like a combat division. You give them the ability to fight back, and you're surprised when they fight back? Winter picked it up and started looking through it, frowning as he flicked through the pages. If we just go forward with this information, all dug from the depths of Triad's secret files, there will be a lot of focus on how we got our hands on it. We desperately need to find this trio. Their first-hand accounts will fill a lot of gaps we have right now. They have to be in the city somewhere if their targets are here, yeah? With the knight, that may not be the case. But would a knight have the range and stamina to be popping in and out of the dome on a whim? Maybe not, but we shouldn't make assumptions about their skills. We have no idea what these experiments did to their abilities. Is there information on their identities in there? Could be buried somewhere in here. I haven't seen it yet, though. Excuse me. It's possible their public records were scrubbed and he wasn't able to retrieve them. I'll do another search for missing persons. I can't say I'm confident in being more thorough than the world's top king rank, Esper, but maybe there's something he missed. It's hard to believe anyone can erase someone's identity to this degree, but this is the Triad. He flopped on the sofa, dropping the packet back on the table. Man, it feels like nothing about this case is typical except all the tedious information hunting. When was the last time we had Magnus Ulrich helping us with a case? Never, but we've never had a case of this potential magnitude either. Not when we are aware of it, anyway. It's my turn to pick up the hello packet and start flicking through the pages. There really was an experiment on humans. On Espers like me. It felt more real holding this information in my hands after receiving it from a reliable source like the head of Endgame. I never could have imagined getting involved in something like this. Never. And now I was doing my best to help track it into the light. I only hoped we'd succeed. What I followed was more of the same. More reading, more digging for clues. Winter went back to the office because he wanted to use their databases for some in-depth searches. It was already late by then, though, so Reuben and I stayed home poring over Magnus's information. I thought what had happened to me was extraordinary, that I was some kind of outlier, but looking at all this makes me feel that that wasn't the case. Is there any Esper that gets to just live? If it's not Endgame showing up, it's someone else, and even if no one does, it seems like any little thing, any accidental use of psi can completely turn someone's life upside down, so people go to groups like Esplanade. And now this. I do think the situation is an outlying situation, but I understand what you mean. What happens if and when we find these kids? Do we help them find their friend? Our goal would be to shut down this supposed sister project, so if that's where their friend is, then yes. What if they don't cooperate? Realistically, they have no reason to trust a system that allowed them to be experimented on. I'm sure Endgame will be involved more publicly at that point, so it may be up to them. I would hope that, given where Magnus stands, he'd be willing to not recruit them anyway. Yeah. But I still wasn't sure how we'd find them. We needed their help, though. Reuben stood and stretched before offering me his hand. We need a break. Want to go for a walk, clear our heads for a bit? Yeah, I'm up for it. I didn't know how well I'd actually be able to clear my head, though. We gotta try at least. When we made it down to the canal where Reuben liked to walk, we were silent for a long time. Hey, it's nighttime this time. It was like sunset the first time they visited. Nope, not glossary. I'm fine. Extras. Galleries. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, this picture. He's so pretty. Anyway. He had his hands in his pockets, eyes tracing the pattern of the footpath. At one point he looked up, a light breeze catching his hair, blowing it across his forehead. He looked worried, tired. I slipped my arm through his and leaned my head against his shoulder. And as we stopped at the railing for a moment, his cheek came to rest on the top of my head. We stood like that for several minutes. He was twisting his fingers together as he stared into the water. Without thinking, I slid my hand from his elbow to his wrist and hooked one of my fingers in his. He brought my hand between his, lacing his fingers through mine as he held it. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the Reuben romance, and I hope that the other romances will be just as much fun. It seems like it, just from the little that I saw of Ari's romance. I am glad you're here. He murmured the words so soft I almost didn't hear it over the sound of the water. Sound of the water kind of mushed the words there. A smile came to my lips. Same. At some point it won't be just long, stressful days and something huge looming over us like this. When that time comes, I just hope. He trailed off, and after another long silence, I realized he wasn't going to finish whatever that uncertainty was. I glanced up at him. The smile he gave me was one I'd seen before. Gentle, but somehow a little sad, and I knew he wasn't worrying about this case, but us. Of course, we're gonna smooch him. I reached up to pull him down for a kiss. He seemed surprised, but didn't resist. I wished he could be more confident about our future, that he could say all the things he was holding back, even express his worries without resorting to such hesitant caution. Mostly I wanted him to be confident about how much I wanted to be with him. I moved away a little and looked up at him for a long time, letting my fingers trail over the stubble along his jaw. One day, I hope we can talk about why you're always so worried about messing up with me. But until then, I hope you remember that I also am glad to be here. I'm doing my best. He turned toward me, pulling me against him. I let my head rest on his chest as I watched the lights reflected in the distant water. I don't like talking about past relationships. Maybe it's just too much guilt, too much feeling like I'm the one that broke it all. And I won't lie, I guess I feel like maybe you won't want to hear that there were other people. Or maybe afraid it won't bother you at all, actually. I suppose it would be awkward if it seemed like you were still attached to them. Can't say I'd find it a delightful experience, but you don't have to avoid talking about it either. Does it make you feel bad knowing I've had other relationships? He chuckled softly. Well, it doesn't make me happy, but I suppose I don't have a right to complain. I hesitate to admit it, but I guess it's a little possessiveness. Being annoyed someone else heard these kinds of words from you, and wondering if someday someone else will be hearing them again. That's just self-doubt creeping in, I suppose. We can never know how a relationship will go. We can only hope, right? I looked up at him, watching the light breeze smooth the two stray strands of his hair across his forehead. Reached up to push them back out of the way. We can focus on where we are right now, who we're with right now. You're awfully wise for someone younger than I am. Please, we're not even that different in age. My parents have twice the gap. Mine too, actually. Stop acting like you're that much older than me. But you get so charmingly annoyed by it. I gave his forehead a solid bump, but he just laughed and pulled my hand away before drawing me back against him. Wonder if, after we no longer have a case to talk about and you are no longer being protected... Yes, go on. I just wonder if we'd still have things to talk about, or if you'll still need me around, which is a stupid fear, at least the latter. I do worry whether I can actually talk about anything but work. It's always sad or fretting about how bad I am at relationships. I let out a soft, regretful laugh before reaching up to cup his face as gently as possible, before squishing his cheeks in and giving him an annoyed look. I'm not going anywhere, and we will have plenty to talk about. I can drown out your work talk with 1,000 other topics if I have to. And I can drag you around the city to every museum there is, or out to Jerez to go rock climbing, or 100 other places. I released him and swept his hair off his forehead before letting my hand settle at the back of his neck again. I can't make you stop worrying, but every time you're fretting over relationships, I will reassure you that no relationship magically succeeds. As long as you're both willing to try, that's what matters. He pulled me against him again, wrapping me into a tight hug. I know, I just feel so fortunate you even want to try with me that sometimes I can't quite believe it. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts after this case is over, too. Please. You scoff now, but you'll figure out how many bad habits I have eventually. Well, I'm looking forward to learning all these bad habits of yours. Pulled away and gave him another serious look. I'm looking forward to learning the rest of yours. The rest of them? Yeah, I've definitely already learned the one where you're stubborn and reckless. He let out a gentle laugh and pulled me back against his chest. We stayed like that for a long time before we started walking again and made our way back to where he'd left his car. And then back to his place. We talked a little more about the case, but not much, thankfully. When we finally said goodnight, he gave me a pleasant kiss that stayed in my mind long after I was in bed. Case closed. What? There's 14 chapters and they're titling this one Case Closed? What the heck? A few days later, we hadn't had any progress locating our trio. Things had gone quiet, and though we had a list of people we were watching, we weren't even sure if anyone on that list was the next target. It wasn't an entirely unproductive period. For instance, we had compiled a short list of people who had passed away in the last few months from natural causes that might not be natural after all. Not just in Cerna, but also New Albion, Esper. I had no idea if there was a connection there, but I couldn't rule it out. Winter and Reuben also circled back with the people in Cerna that Leon had reportedly attacked, though none of them had much more to add that we didn't already know. Reuben's sheer stubbornness had led him to a tiny amount of personal information about Leon, though it was the only member of the trio we'd tracked down any information for. The amount of digging he did to find a single archived personal journal from a young man for whom there didn't seem to be any other records. I still didn't know how he'd stumbled across it. But from there, he was able to dig up an old profile picture, years old. It did very much resemble the Rook I'd met, though. The journal entry made mention of being a low-level infantry, though he's definitely not an infantry anymore. That by itself seemed to confirm that something had been done to him. If only we could find them and ask. There had been a few people who had reported seeing one or more of the trio around Esper hangouts, but no solid leads beyond that. It was frustrating. I half flopped on the desk in front of me, watching Reuben and Winter pore over maps for the 20th time as they tried to work out, based on where the kids had been spotted, where they might be hiding. So we considered that the kids might be holed up in the underground. Another secret Esper hangout? No, it's a series of catacombs beneath the city, beneath most cities, though it's not common knowledge. Parts of it are Aryan in origin and have some of the same attributes as Aryan ruins, which means they're dangerous and can react badly to psi. We have most of the entrances blocked off, but every so often someone makes it down there. I'm sorry, the city has a what underneath it? I can give you more information about it later, but the point is that it could make a good hiding place for someone unworried about triggering some sort of horrific security system. Which shouldn't be any Esper who has spent more than 5 minutes down there. I'm sorry, what? Aryan catacombs? Are there people studying them? What are they exactly? I mean, what's their purpose? You said they're under most cities? And the archaeologist geek comes out. That'd be me. How big are they? What have I done? Look at Winter. Later, Dahlia, I promise. A long, detailed discussion, just not right now. Fine. I can't believe you're going to drop that on me and not give me more details. I think he forgot what her main what she studied in school. Leaning back in my seat, I released a strangled sigh. I mean, I understood, but still. Oh, I'm with you, Dahlia. I'm with you. I know you two dismissed my earlier offer to look for the trio, but I think we're at a dead end with manual searching. I should just give it a try. I appreciate the offer, but like I said before, trying to search the city using Psi isn't as easy as you think. It's a big city, and even you would have to go through it bit by bit, looking through tens of thousands of people for 3 specific ones. Doing searches like that without getting overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information you'd be receiving is a pretty specific skill set, even in a place like Endgame. And doing a grid search where you keep your Psi localized to a small area to avoid some kind of sensory overload is going to take a lot of time and will also exhaust you. Yeah, but we're talking about 3 people who should stand out in a sea of Psi signatures that are not a Rook, King, and Knight. I still think that if I can get a broad view of the city with my sphere, I'd be able to identify their Psi pretty easily. Is something like that even possible? No other Esper we've worked with searches like that. Winter's right about that, though I suppose we have to admit you have a knack for turning what we think we know about Espers on its head. Yeah, it's her knack for doing that which caught Magnus Ulrich's recent attention, isn't it? Her knack for doing it and inability to question whether it's a good idea. Also true, your ability to push the limits of what we understand Psi to be able to do doesn't necessarily work in your favor every time you do it. But it works in the favor of this case, which is currently at a standstill, right? Again, I worry you might find the sensitive information overwhelming. What you're talking about could put you under a lot of mental strain. One of our trio is a king rank. If I'm just blocking out everything but Psi signatures, I should be able to spot that quickly, even in a large population. Can you block out everything but Psi signatures? Because that's the part I'm concerned about. Not talking about homing in on a location, but a specific attribute people have. I'm not sure that's feasible. No, if it was me, me specifically, it would be history, period. I love history. So I would definitely know the stuff about Shakespeare and even Pandora's box. I would know that kind of shit. That would be my jam. Look, I'm not worried about whether it's possible. If it is, it is. And if it isn't, it isn't. And I can't imagine looking for people will overwhelm me more than literally anything else I've done the last few weeks. My biggest worry is that they may notice I'm looking for them. They noticed me right away last time. If I find them, we may not have much time to get to where they are. They do have a night after all. Oh, there's a way bigger flaw that hasn't occurred to either of you. Yeah, my bachelor's degree is in history and political science. And that was because I was planning to teach high school, but I've decided that's not for me. The last couple of times you expanded your sphere looking for someone, you teleported right into their lap. Lapping only happened once. Thank you. My point is that we cannot have you accidentally transport yourself to them while looking. Not this time. In my defense, I'd never used my skills that way before in both situations, and I am getting better at controlling things. That's not good enough, Dahlia. No one is going to let you do this until we know it's safe. Alright, why don't I practice in a safe location? It will also help us test how overwhelming it all is for me if what I want to try is even possible. I'd like to be present for this practicing. It's not something you should be doing alone, just in case it doesn't go as you hoped. Fair. I'm fine with that. In that case, we can at least test your idea out and decide after if it's safer to do on a larger scale. Safe to do on a larger scale. There we go. Yeah, my sibling liked art history, and I would complain about art all the time, like there was no point to it, especially something like Jackson Pollock where it's very abstract. I was like, I don't get it. What's the point? It's just splashes, and they're like, part of it is just your viewing the piece, and your reaction to it is part of the piece, and it's like, no, that's too abstract. That doesn't make sense. I guess it's a suitable compromise. Finally! I wasn't sure it would work either, but I wanted to at least do something besides sit around. I had never been in the training facility at the office before, but that was where we relocated to. Reuben and Winter weren't able to offer any practical help, so they worked on other things while I tried to figure out this technique. We got occasional curious onlookers, but Winter chased most of them out to let me focus. The first order of business was to confirm that my idea would work at all. The answer to that one was definitively yes, though it wasn't as easy as I first imagined, particularly ignoring all information but Psi signatures. I did manage it after several failed attempts, and was able to pinpoint Reuben's location elsewhere in the building based on the fact that his side was now a warm gold instead of the usual green. We had already confirmed his ascension into the infantry classification, so there was no surprise there when I told him how I found him. Winter, on the other hand, is virtually invisible when using this method due to his complete lack of psi. We paused to discuss that for a little while. Well, nanite rejection is uncommon enough that it shouldn't matter much anyway. It does make sense that this is a limitation of this technique. It's not all that useful for locating anyone who doesn't have a form of psi that stands out either. I wouldn't be able to pick out anyone specific from a crowd of normal individuals either. They're just a sea of green. As far as Esper's search strategies, though, I suppose it still has uses. It would be nice if it wasn't reliant on an ability that appears it might be specific to you. We don't know that for sure. Well, it doesn't matter right now anyway. The important thing is that we've confirmed you can find people with this sort of large-scale search method. But we need to work on why the previous accidental teleportation happened before, so you can avoid it this time. I may just need to work on not getting overly emotional when stressed. It's going to take more than a day of training to learn to keep a cool head during emergencies. Yes, but this isn't an emergency either. I don't think being emotional is the only contributing factor. I hope we can get a handle on it then. Well, that is the point of practice, even if we were rushing it a bit. For the time being, I would work on that alone too. Teleporting was another skill a little beyond their expertise. I moved away and shut my eyes, trying to ignore their presence and the furtive glances Reuben was casting my way as I attempted to create a sort of mental list of steps to follow. After doing that, the only thing left was to try to follow through. I accidentally hit the scroll button on my mouse. First, I caged a location on the other side of the room that imagined that warped sense of space and the pull this form of teleportation always created. And then I immediately launched myself face first into a wall by means of a micro wormhole. Ouch! Oh yeah! He darted across the room and was at my side in a second, pulling my hands away from my face so he could examine it. I tried not to laugh at the look of absolute worry on his face. Are you alright? Please warn me next time you do that. I don't want this practice session to result in any injuries. I don't know how you intend to stop me the next time I teleport myself face first into something. Granted, you do make a good landing cushion, but I don't think I could teleport myself to your lap every single time. As much as I wouldn't mind catching you as many times as it takes, probably not. Hey, you two. Cute as this little interaction is, we might have a slight problem. What's going on? Check your messages. We have an emergency meeting. Yeah, I see it. Let's go. They rushed out of the training room, leaving me to follow. I was just a consultant, so I wasn't invited to whatever this meeting was, or so I thought. When he saw me out in the hall, Phil motioned me into their deployment room with the others. Found my place along the back wall, managing to squeeze myself in with only a few sidelong looks. Reuben and Winter were up at the front, close to where Phil took position as he began speaking. Sorry for the short notice, everyone. The situation is developing and we're still getting details from the response teams on exactly what happened. This one is ours, though, as the culprits appear to all be Espers, 6 of them engaged in a very public confrontation. Based on surveillance, we've confirmed one of the 6 to be one of the young men from the Esplanade case Detectives Kellner and Ashton are working with Miss Blumenthal on. Oh no. We don't know what caused the confrontation or who the other Espers are. All 6 fled the area before any agents were on the scene. As I listened, I was staring at the screen behind him where there was footage of emergency vehicles scattered around a damaged street. It looked like pure chaos. Right now they're reporting 15 civilians with minor injuries and, as you can see behind me, extensive public damage. Endgame has been notified. Their cleanup teams will be arriving soon. Sorry, Reuben Winter, but it looks like your case is going to be elevated at this rate. Get your information organized. We're most likely going to be turning it all over to an Endgame investigation unit by the end of the day. But you're still on this case until they take it away from us, so I also need you to get down there and start talking to witnesses. The scene may be too chaotic to get much of a psychometric reading on. Let's see if our resident consultant can come through for us one more time. I want to know where those kids ran off to before Endgame gets here, if possible. And more than that, I want to know who the hell they keep clashing with. This isn't the first time, and I want an ID on the other 3 involved if we can get it. Understood. I tuned out Phil at that point, body buzzing with sudden anxiety-fueled adrenaline. Did that mean this whole thing was over? The whole point until now was to show that Endgame didn't always have to get involved in cases like this. That it was useful to have ranked Espers available to prevent this sort of thing. Magnus was just telling us the dangers of them getting involved, and now we'd failed. It all blew up in a very public way before we could do anything. With Phil barking orders to other teams and everyone getting ready to mobilize, I slipped out on my own to try to quiet my nerves while I had time. The main office was empty, so I found my way to Reuben's desk, chewing my lower lip as I waited for them to be dismissed. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's coming to a head. Oh no, oh no. I should check with Reuben about searching for the trio before we left the office, because I could do it just as well from here and it might save us some time. Going to the scene felt like a waste, of finding the trio was the main priority. I waited where I was, mulling it over for several minutes before the agents started filing back into the main office. Reuben and Winter made a beeline for their desk area when they saw me there. Sorry about that. You all right? I saw you slip out earlier. I'm fine. I just need to be somewhere quiet. I didn't think the rest of that meeting was really for me. Something's bothering you. Yeah, a lot. Turning the case over to Endgame, it's like writing off everything I've done for the last few weeks. I'm not okay with that. I mean, I know we may not have a choice, but... Look, I think I should search for a trio before we leave. I could find them now, but we may lose that chance if I don't try. Reuben paused in the middle of pulling on his jacket and released a soft sigh, running a hand over his face. I understand your concerns right now. They're the same as mine, but we have an emergency to deal with right now. Can't even say for sure that you'll be able to find them with your method, which means we could be losing valuable time to get information from direct witnesses. And we didn't get a chance to perfect the teleportation yet. I know, but I'm confident I can. We also aren't certain how searching will affect you, and we can't afford to have you already exhausted or in pain by the time we get to the scene if you don't succeed. We need to make sure you're available to look there as well. And finally, as much as I don't think you want to hear it, we have orders. Yeah, I observe you're more than willing to ignore orders when it suits you. Sometimes, yes, but I also know when to listen to my boss. You mean when he happens to be in the next room? That is a contributing factor, yes. I just feel like there's a better use of my abilities than trying to pick up some psychometric threads at yet another crime scene. I know it feels like that, Dahlia, but you can always try your strategy afterwards. For now, we have a situation to manage, and we need your help. One part of this job is being able to adapt to sudden changes in the plan, even if you don't like them. I'll wait until we get to the scene and see what's visible from there, but I'm concerned the kids will flee the city or go somewhere I can't find them. I don't want to lose the window of opportunity and see every effort to make a difference be wasted, that's all. Not just for my sake, for theirs, for the victims, for you. I never thought you were trying to look out only for yourself, but I have somewhat noticed you just don't like it when plans change. So I appreciate your flexibility on this one. Well, I try, even if it makes me cranky. And very, very worried. Come on, Winter's waiting. When we reached the scene of the incident a short time later, there was less chaos than I expected. The damage, of course, was everywhere, to buildings, streets, cars, bins. Emergency workers were still triaging a few people with minor injuries, but there were fewer people than I expected. Reuben and Winter were busy with all that right away, leaving me to my own devices on the footpath. For a while, I just stood there, taking it in. There were plenty of psychometric threads, a confused jumble of them that made it impossible to tell where some began and others ended. I wasn't even sure how to begin sorting through all that. Surely there were years of everyday echoes in that mess. If I let myself latch onto some of the fainter threads, that was the impression I got anyway. The brightest ones were where I should be looking, but, well, there was a reason some suggested letting it seem settle before allowing a psychometrist in. Even so, I moved into the street, blocked off from traffic on either end, and focused on a tangle of vents near an overturned vehicle. I took a breath and dove straight in. This time, I was expecting the flood of information. There's no painful jumble of visuals, rather it was like watching snippets of a movie play out. They were disconnected but not difficult to parse together. The other information I received, the panicked onlookers, the irrelevant echoes from days or months of constant traffic through this place, I could ignore those, for the most part. I stood in one place watching the information long enough that Reuben disentangled himself from what I was doing and joined me. Is everything okay? Are you seeing something? Yes, nothing particularly useful. Our trio was here. We already knew that. We clashed with another group of Espers, an unexpected encounter that began in an alley nearby. Both groups fled. One of our trio, the knight I think, was injured. Can't tell where they went, not just from the echoes here. And I can't tell you who they were up against. There wasn't exactly an introduction, just glimpses of faces. But you might if you try your other strategy? I don't see any other way to find them, Reuben. When someone teleports, the psychometric threads just cut off, and I can't follow them anymore. I don't know how else to track them down. All right, it's not like any of the witnesses saw where they went either. Caught Winter's eye from where we were standing and indicated we were going to move into a little alley nearby. Are you certain you can do this without any accidental teleportation? We didn't get very far with practicing that. I am confident. I am allowing this one because I'm well aware you have a lot riding on this. Please be careful, Dahlia. I'll be fine, I promise. You can't promise that! I wasn't certain I would be, but I just had to be, I suppose. I let out a slow breath and shut my eyes, but expanding my sphere as far as I dared. The initial influx of information was overwhelming as expected. But using what I learned while practicing earlier, I was able to block out everything but the glow of psi signatures, painting my view as a sea of green. There were a few spots of gold and a lone flash of red amongst the green. Then, there! I think I see them, a trio of non-green psi. I focused in on them, only loosely catching on where they were so I could let other information bleed in. They're in a warehouse, I think, an abandoned place. One of them is injured, like I thought. Where are they? I pulled back a little further. I felt the flicker of awareness as the king rank noticed me and immediately released my sphere, snapping back into my actual location. What happened? The king knows me. They might try to flee, but I'm not sure they can with their knight hurt. Can you identify the location? I think so. Reuben called Winter over while I tried to match the mental image to a map of the city and started searching for the place I'd seen. I was silent for several minutes. All right, I think I may have found it. I'll send you the location where I think it is. Fortunately, you're going to have to come with us this time. We'll need you there to confirm we're in the right place. I understand. Then, let's go. We didn't go alone, and I was just tagging along behind them as Reuben spoke to several other teams arranging for a rendezvous at the location. I just hoped it wasn't wasted effort, and that they didn't have the chance to flee before we reached them. It was anticlimactic. We drove to an area of the city a little run down and empty. The specialist team took over, making sure to contain the building and set up a psi dampening parameter. I sat in the car for all of it and couldn't even see what they were doing, especially since I'd been told to not to use psi. Everyone was expecting a violent confrontation with the group was still inside, but that didn't happen. What did happen was that they asked to talk to me and refused to speak to anyone else until it was allowed. Of course! Which was how I found myself inside the building where they'd been contained. Reuben warned me I might find the dampening effect disorienting since I'd never experienced one before, but I didn't notice a change. Maybe I was just too nervous or too distracted. The trio were seated on some old chairs. They weren't restrained, but each had a psi inhibitor on their wrist. The knight was getting their injuries treated, but they didn't look well. Reuben stayed at my side and walked me to them. Did they say why they wanted to talk? No, but they knew you were the one that found them, as you expected. They didn't seem angry or confrontational, or I wouldn't be allowing this. Hesitant but curious, I approached the three Espers, once again struck by how young they seemed. Reuben was right that they didn't seem angry at all. But I had no idea what to say to them. Fortunately, their king rank jumped right in. Are you looking for us because you know what they did to us? We want to know how much you know. We want to know whose side you're on. I hesitated, then crouched down in front of the one who spoke. We are aware of that, yes. Some of it. We're hoping you can fill in the gaps. That's why we've been looking for you. Are you going to make them stop? That's the plan, yes. They have a friend of ours. We want to find her. My abilities are... I can't look on my own anymore. We've been trying, but I can't anymore. We didn't want to see anyone get hurt. None of them. We weren't trying to hurt any of them. Just get information. I'm aware of that. If you cooperate with Utpal and probably Endgame, I think we can help you find your friend. We know they're... Glanced around and lowered my voice a little. We know they're part of something called Project Gemini, but we don't have a lot of information about it. They shared a look between the three of them, and the king spoke up again. If I cooperate, will you let these two go? Hey, that's not... Riles. Leon, stop. I'm the one they'll want most. I don't have the ability to make any promises about what happens next, but I think you'll find a lot of people are sympathetic to what you've gone through, including some who have more ability to make those kinds of promises. They said we're going to be taken to Endgame. That's also my understanding. I know Magnus Ulrich. I believe he very much wants to put a stop to this research as well. Endgame might also be able to help with your condition. She looked at me again with those fade-affected eyes. Then her gaze slid away, and she gave a non-committal shrug. I don't care about that. I never wanted this to begin with. I could probably never understand everything they've been through, but that part anyway. That part I understood well. I'm Dahlia, by the way. We were never able to find all your names. I'm Riley, Gregor, Leon, Alicia. I'm going to do what I can to keep helping you. I hope you believe me on that at least. With the things you've been through, I want to make sure they never happen to anyone else. That much I can promise is true. I had so many things I wanted to ask. Their friends' name, the identities of the people they were fighting with, who they'd been trying to find when the fight happened. But none of that was my job, was it? I wasn't an interrogator or even a real investigator. My part was finished now. It felt so empty somehow. I don't know that we'll get to talk again soon, and after this, a lot of people are going to be asking you a lot of questions. Do your best to answer, okay? I got a half nod as a response. We didn't get a chance to talk more. Several agents came over and said it was time to get the kids to a temporary holding facility for Endgame. I just stood there and watched while they were led away. Riley looked back once before vanishing outside. You okay? Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I shrugged, unable to put it into words. What happens now? Well, we have a hell of a lot of paperwork. The kids are going to be held overnight, I think. Endgame sent a cleanup crew earlier, but they weren't planning on taking anyone into custody. It looks like Endgame is dealing with something big on their end, God knows what, and has to send a special team to pick them up tomorrow. Do they actually have something going on, or is Magnus trying to buy us more time again? Not sure, but since we have the time, we'll get statements from the kids regarding today's incident and the Emerson situation, and everything else. And I think it's wise to hand it to Endgame after that. Fits with the narrative we'll want to present publicly, and, well, they can handle the bigger implications better than we can, and follow this through to its natural conclusion in a way that would be difficult for us. We are, after all, a trioed organization. Yeah. Looks like we'll be heading back to the office now. We have an unfortunate amount of work ahead of us. Fun. Unless you want to do some searching for the remaining Espers on the loose? I didn't actually see anyone else once looking for these three. The others may have already fled the city. Well, it might be best to leave it to Endgame anyway. Looks like we're done here. Phil gave a public statement about the incident that we watched live from Reuben's desk. He only released a few scattered details about the case, and it felt like too brief a statement for the enormity of the truth behind it, and how much work was left to do. Riley and the others weren't being punished, but they were being held in custody for the time being. And despite my assurances to them, I wasn't certain what would happen to them now. They were in a cell waiting to be picked up, and I was free. It felt unfair somehow. I was supposed to be writing up a report on my psychometric experiences, but instead found myself writing a note to Magnus, asking him to keep me updated, telling him how I thought the kids shouldn't face consequences, somehow desperately seeking reassurance from him that this was going to end well. I don't know if he can even promise that. I didn't send it. Not yet. It was a garbled mess. I needed time to collect my thoughts and clean it up. I sat for an hour staring at a blank report I was supposed to be writing, except I kept going back to the message to edit and tweak it and add more thoughts. I was keyed up and struggling to focus, and I didn't know why. Until Reuben finally suggested we go home. I agreed only because it was obvious staying was useless anyway. The hollow feeling of incompleteness followed me right out to the door, though, and I could only hope it would fade by the time we got home. I don't want to stop. Still 45 minutes left. I don't know. Should I keep going? I'm debating. Should I stay? Should I keep going? Should I... Yeah, I really want to know what happens next, so we'll keep going. Because these are short chapters. The first thing Reuben did when we got back to his house was call Quill with a full update of the day. I hadn't even thought about him until Reuben mentioned it. There were so many people wrapped up in this case. With Endgame's involvement imminent, Reuben wanted to make sure Nisa was ready. For the first time, though, he didn't excuse himself to his study to talk. I couldn't hear Quill's side of the conversation, but I was able to gather some things from what Reuben said. For instance, that there had already been a push within Nisa to be publicly recognized as an official dome. Their focus now is to create a plan for a smooth transition. That should lessen the fallout from Endgame inevitably turning their attention there, especially with Aurelia promising protection for its population. Change was inevitable as this case continued to its conclusion, but at least they'd had time to prepare a little. The two of them talked for only a short while before making a promise to touch base again soon. Reuben wished him luck when they disconnected. That sounded like it went well. He was less frustrated than I thought he'd be. I suppose he's had time to reconcile with what's coming. With the large population of both biosynths and espers, they have some reason for concern. Naturally. He's mentioned before that they've had people show up there claiming to have managed to get away from various projects, labs and such. He's worried people who found normalcy there may be in jeopardy now, but at this point they can only brace themselves. The Dayside may also have to come to terms with their biosynth regulations through Eldis as well. Aurelia isn't as powerful as some of the other places here on the Dayside, so it's difficult to say what will happen, but, well, Aurelia isn't the only place with shadow domes and sub-communities with biosynths. He had mentioned Esper once as well, but I wondered how widespread it really was. If our little trio of Espers had made it to Nisa, things might have gone differently for them. That would have been better for them, I think, but then this case would have gone quite differently. Things could have been different for you and Nisa, too. I'm happy with where I am, thank you. I reached for his hand, finding my fingers with his. Wish I could say things would go back to normal for you now that we've accomplished at least part of our original goal, but we both know that my old normal is gone for good no matter what happens, but I'm okay with that. Things change, that's just how it is. With this case going the direction it has, maybe things are looking good for you to be able to give a proper think about settling in. Not having to have a bodyguard? I don't mind being a bodyguard. Please, I know how being glued to me has impacted your ability to work. You can't continue to drag me around on every case. After this, maybe we can reevaluate your TPPS status. That would be nice. I can't not be a Queen Rent anymore, but it would be nice to consider what that means for me longer term. I feel like I haven't been able to see past this case and making some kind of statement with it for so long, but still, it hasn't been all bad. In some ways, it's been a breath of fresh air to be in Cyrna. I didn't realize how stifling New Albion even was until I left. I remain glad you can find at least a little positive in it all. I want more safe spots. You're not counting yourself as a positive then? Though I admit I'm not surprised. I rested my head on his shoulder, shutting my eyes as I sighed very loudly. I want to say I didn't mean it that way, but deep down you really did. I pulled away and looked up at him, reaching up to rest a hand on his cheek. One day, I'm going to get you to tell me why you're so convinced you aren't worthy of being loved when you're ready. And that same day, I'm going to hold you down and make you listen to every single thing I love about you. From your dorky sense of humor to that dimple when you smile, to your amazing eyes, that look you get on your face when you're concentrating, how easy it is to fluster you. Please stop. I am not sure I'm going to be able to handle more of that. You better brace yourself because the day is coming, my dear. Out of everything that's happened, the one thing I wouldn't give up no matter what is meeting you. I need you to understand that. Sometimes when you're just waiting for things to fall apart, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I need you to believe in me, in yourself, in us. I'm giving us a chance, but sometimes I worry you aren't. Not really. Not if you're waiting for me to leave. Yes. Yes. Exactly. His hand tightened around mine, and he squeezed his eyes shut. I don't want to seem that way. I'm sorry. His head drooped. I'm just terrified of losing you already. I don't mean to make it seem like I don't think we can work. He looked up at me, eyes almost desperate as they searched my face, maybe trying to see if I was angry at him. I want to believe it, too. It's not that I lack faith in you. It's me. God, I'm sorry. I always turn into this complete mess, don't I? I just don't want to drive someone else away. He tipped his head up, peering into those dark eyes, then leaned in to place a very gentle kiss to his lips. Hey, you're not a mess, and even if you are, it's fine. People are messy. I'm messy. Oh yeah. If you're a mess, then I love the sort of mess you are. It's the best kind of mess. I kissed him again. He let out a quiet sigh as one of his hands came to rest on my shoulder, then my face. Lighting there so briefly, I felt I could have almost imagined the touch. Still holding back? His eyes flew open. Dahlia? I just smiled at him as I teasingly messed up the front of his hair. He buried his face against my neck. I love you. I wove my fingers through the back of his hair, shutting my eyes. I love you so much, Reuben. I need you to know how much I need you in my life. That's my line. He pulled away, then gingerly clasped my face as he kissed me again. Reuben always kissed me with such tenderness, like he thought I might shatter under his touch, like he thought if he showed even the slightest amount of real want, the spell would break and I'd leave. It didn't frustrate me to see those moments when he lacked confidence. It frustrated me that something in the past made him so afraid of ruining things. I wound my arms around him, wishing I could convince him I was here to stay. We parted slightly, and then he kissed me again, lips just skimming my mouth before he pressed in more firmly. His mouth opened, and I felt the tip of his tongue, tasting the faint mint from his earlier cup of tea. There was a catch in his breath, the beginnings of a groan, when our tongues slid alongside one another. Then once again, he pulled away. He almost smiled when he kissed me a third time. We'd kissed before, but this somehow felt like Reuben testing the waters, trying to figure out where I'd stop him. His kisses were tentative, heartbreakingly cautious. What he'd do when he realized I wasn't going to stop him was what I wanted to find out. There's heat there I'd never felt before, less restrained and just edging on frantic. That sent a pleasant thrill of anticipation through me. One of Reuben's hands lingered delicately on my neck, his thumb tracing the barest hint of a caress at the corner of my jaw. Obviously this is going to go fade to black, but I'm going to play it again off stream when it's not fade to black. I didn't know if he was waiting for me to take the lead or not, but I did suspect he was so unsure of himself he might not. I was determined to show him that I wanted this, that I wanted him. So I shifted position, sliding one knee over his lap as I turned to face him. I wasn't quite sitting on his lap yet, but almost. I pulled away again and looked up at him. I studied his face. His expression was so full of aching want. I am not feeling particularly patient at the moment, so let me know if this is too fast. We can slow down. I pressed feather-like kisses to his lips. Just so you know, I have been waiting for this for such a long time, and I'm incredibly close to throwing myself at you in the most embarrassing way. He let out a soft laugh, then pulled me the rest of the way onto his lap. You don't have to be patient. In fact, I'd much prefer if you weren't. I held his gaze for a moment, then leaned in to press my lips to the underside of his jaw. He sucked his breath in sharply, hands tightening on my hips. Beneath my lips, his pulse quickened as I let my mouth travel up to his ear, gently sucking his earlobe between my teeth. A low escaped him, and I moved a hand to rest on his chest. His heart was pounding as I slipped my fingers between the buttons on his shirt to brush his warm skin. I trailed playful kisses down his neck, smiling as he finally groaned and relaxed against the back of the sofa. It's almost as if he'd been waiting for permission to enjoy this moment. That one small reaction sparked a fire in the pit of my stomach, and I shifted closer to him. I let my tongue glide in smooth circles over his skin, noticing every hitch in his breathing, the way his hands couldn't seem to find a place to rest. They moved from my hips to the small of my back, then my shoulders, and back to my hips. Just gonna double check. Oh wait. Yeah, it's faint black. Okay. Yes, he does deserve to be happy. And we're gonna give it to him. Literally. And to the back of my head when my mouth found its way down to the top button of his shirt, which I wiggled it free so I could plant a kiss to the center of his chest. When I drew back and looked at him again, nudging another button free, the expression on his face sent the little fire in the pit of my stomach to a full blaze. His gaze was hazy, still uncertain, but full of desire. He swallowed hard when our eyes met. I leaned in to kiss him once more as I unfastened the rest of the buttons, then let my hands glide down his torso as he groaned against my mouth this time, his hands moving to grasp my face. I was thinking that we could relocate, if you want. His eyes fluttered closed and a sigh escaped. Yes. Reuben and I made it to the bedroom door before he turned to me, and in a cautious voice, Are you certain? I tugged him a little closer, releasing my fingers through his. I've been certain. Reuben kissed me again, hands cradling my face as he pressed me back to the doorframe. I feel like I've made you wait a while. Best things are worth waiting for. Somehow we made it to the bed, and from there, falling together on the mattress. I hadn't expected that level of stormy, urgent passion, but we had both been holding back too long. A long while later, we were lying in a tangle of bare limbs, and I could only hold him and listen to the sound of his frantic heartbeat. We lay like that for a long time before Reuben spoke again. I think I forgot how comfortable this bed is. His voice was a husky, half-asleep mumble that made me smile as my fingers traced idle shapes on his chest. And a very lovely chest it is, too. Yes, good. Might not be as comfortable as you remember with me in it. I think it's 10 times more comfortable with you in it. I didn't even know how awake he was. The sleepy, slightly slurred words were adorable. Yes, I am waiting for, like I said, I'm going to replay this scene off stream with the settings changed. Save that for after you spend a few hours in it with me stealing the blankets. I keep having to tell myself this isn't a dream. It feels juvenile to say it that way, but I don't think it's juvenile. Propped myself up and looked down at him before pressing a soft kiss to his lips. When I realized I was falling for you, I kept telling myself that I shouldn't. Now I'm sorry I waited so long to let it happen. I felt the same way. His surprised expression made me laugh a little. I can't imagine why you'd feel that way. I just felt like you were dealing with too much to bother with me, and Winter said I should. Look, Winter's a good guy, a good friend, and if he warned you about falling in love, that's odd. But also, friends don't always know best. Somehow I get the sense I'm going to have to reconcile with the fact that you do, though. Of course, always. I'm glad you figured it out so early. So, I was looking at shorts on YouTube, and some people like to record this one of the Disney rides where you're talking to Crush, and he actually talks to the audience members. And a woman said that she was getting married soon, and she asked Crush if he had any advice. And he was like, you're always right. And if he's even a little bit, and if he even contradicts you a little bit, then he's not the guy for you. So that was kind of funny, kind of cute. Huh, well, I don't mind it. I lowered myself back to hit my head on his chest. I think we both had valid reasons for being cautious, but it just got to a point where I couldn't ignore it, and I didn't want to. That's all. One of Reuben's hands found mine and gave it a slight squeeze, but he didn't respond, and after a while I was certain he'd fallen asleep. I followed soon after, still listening to the sound of his soft breathing. I was pretty sure I only slept for a couple of hours before I woke up again. Reuben and I had gone to bed pretty early, so it was about 2 in the morning when I found myself staring at the wall in annoyance at the very audacity of being awake. Ruben's chest was warm against my back, the rise and fall of his breathing breath soothing, but not enough to put me back to sleep. I managed to carefully untangle myself from him somehow, intending to get some water. I paused to sit on the bed for a few minutes, watching the lights from outside play across his features as he slept. He looked so young with all the usual worries wiped from his face, as most people did. A gentle smile crept to my face, and I brushed the tousled hair from his forehead before I stood and headed to the kitchen. I paused once to re-roll the bottoms of the very baggy pajama bottoms I'd taken to wearing because Reuben kept it distressingly cold in the house at night. The house was quiet, and even the sounds from the street outside faded as I padded down the hall. I was almost in the kitchen when I hesitated, one hand on the bar, as I glanced back at the living room. Something felt off. Unease settled in the pit of my stomach, but I wasn't sure why. I took a halting step back before a shadow launched itself at me over the back of the sofa. Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck! I staggered back against the bar, a scream that was caught in my throat, never making it past my lips, before a hand clapped over my mouth. Something painful jabbed into my side, and a jolt of pain shot through my body, followed by numbness that glued my tongue to the roof of my mouth and sent me to the ground. Shit! Everything went dark, and that's the last thing I remembered. Dang it! Ah! Don't have time to keep going, so we're gonna leave it on that cliffhanger. Ah! No! But this does mean that I'll finish next week. Yay! Hi, James. I'm glad you've been enjoying it. In this visual novel, yes, you can. It's called teleportation. And you can only do it if you're a knight or a queen who can mimic a knight's abilities. Okay. So that's it for today. I can feel my voice fading a little anyway. So next week we will finish. We just have chapters 13 and 14 to go, and so it'll probably be a shorter stream. Thank you for joining me, and if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching this. I encourage people to try this game. I've been enjoying the story, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing the other routes. But for now, I will be back. I don't know yet about Wednesday. I'm planning on it, but I'm not sure how that's going to shake out. I will definitely be back next Sunday to finish this, and then after that we'll be playing the demo for Changeling, which is by the same developer. So take care everyone, and see you next time. Bye!